Hello, and welcome to the Community IT Innovators Technology Topics Podcast, where we discuss nonprofit technology, cybersecurity, tech project implementation, strategic planning, and nonprofit IT careers. Find us at communityit.com. Thank you for joining Community IT for this podcast, Part 1. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a rating to help others find this leadership resource for nonprofits. Listen for Part 2 in your podcast feed.
Thank you so much for joining us. We are presenting today a nonprofit digital health workshop with Tim Lockie from HumanStack. I'm going to let Tim introduce himself in a moment, but I'm going to introduce this workshop by saying we are aiming it at smaller nonprofits with under 15 staff members. You might not think you can manage your IT needs unless you are the IT person. Some of you may have someone on staff who kind of absorbed this responsibility. Maybe you are the accidental techie. Maybe there is really no one in your nonprofit who feels comfortable managing IT, but someone has to do it, and it ended up being you. So you've come to the right place today. Tim has come to talk with us about some strategies and approaches to help walk you through the gaining the confidence to be able to make IT decisions. And we're going to talk about some free resources and next steps today. So my name is Carolyn Woodard. I'm the Outreach Director for Community IT, and I'm the moderator today. And a million years ago, I was the accidental techie in charge of IT at a very small nonprofit. And I really wish I had had a friend like Tim to reassure me that I could do it and to walk me through what to do, like the first steps to take, where to start. So I'm very, very happy to have him here today. Before I turn it over to Tim, if you're not familiar with Community IT, I'm going to give you a little bit more about us. We are 100% employee-owned managed services provider. We provide outsourced IT support, and we work exclusively with nonprofit organizations. Our mission is to help nonprofits accomplish their missions through the effective use of technology. We're big fans of what well-managed IT can do for your nonprofit. We serve nonprofits across the United States. We've been doing this for over 20 years, and we are technology experts. We are consistently given the MSP 501 recognition for being a top MSP, which is an honor we received again in 2023. And I want to remind everyone that for these webinars, Community IT is vendor agnostic. So we only make recommendations to our clients only based on their specific business needs. And we never try to get a client into a product because we have some hidden incentive or benefit to doing that. But we do consider ourselves a best of breed IT provider. And it's our job to know the landscape, the tools that are available, reputable, and widely used. And we make recommendations on that basis to our clients based on their business needs, their priorities, and their budget. We do often have guest speakers on our website who have resources and services available, and today is no exception. But I'm going to say, as with any guest speaker, that is between you and Tim. If you want to take him up on anything that he talks about today, I took the free quiz that we're about to take, and it was very helpful, but I'm in a different place from you, so your results may vary. So I want to quick touch on our learning objectives. So today we want to, at the end of the session today, we hope that you can diagnose your organization through a free digital health quiz. We want to help you understand the human behaviors and needs that are at the root of IT management at nonprofits, learn the basics of nonprofit tech decision-making strategies, and learn the order of steps to take to gain decision-making confidence. And I'm very, very happy to talk to our expert today, Tim Lockie from the HumanStack. So Tim, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Tim Lockie. I live in Bozeman, Montana, and I'm really excited to talk with you today. I've been working in nonprofits since I was 18 and care a lot about making the world better. And I think we could leverage technology to create so much more impact with the same humans and the same resources.
The URL for that quiz is thehumanstack.com/quiz.
What you're going to see there is 6 questions and then room for comments at the end. And these 6 questions, we're going to go through each one of the digital health vitals that the question is centered around. And what I want to show you is how it doesn't tell you everything, obviously. It's just a quick quiz, but it's not like one of those, magazines where the quiz is just not helpful at all. There's a lot here, and I'm going to show you how I use this quiz to diagnose extremely large organizations and really tiny organizations. Same questions, thinking about it the same way. So that's, and it should take just a couple of minutes. Shouldn't take that long.
Tim, do you want to talk about the human stack while we're waiting for people to do the quiz?
Yeah. So how I got here is that I just became the accidental techie at a global organization, nonprofit. And the more I did the tech, the more I liked it. And I finally realized this is my bit in life, is to help nonprofits with their data and with their technology. So in 2010, I started a company called Now It Matters. And that was a consulting firm that helped people use Salesforce specifically. I became a global expert at Salesforce MVP, traveled the world talking about Salesforce, started a user group here in Bozeman, had 6 different certifications, had like the whole thing. And I was chugging along that trail really hardcore. And then in 2019, I went to an event. Somebody put up a slide that said 90% of organizations collect data, but only 5% use that data to make decisions. And it gutted me because that was my job, right? Like that's not like Salesforce tech, that's how you collect the data, but using that data, converting that data, that should be what I'm doing with my clients. And when I looked at our contracts and the way that we were set up, if a client did not use what we had built for them, I got paid the same amount. And when I looked at that across the industry, I just thought, we're selling transformation in our marketing and we're delivering deliverables, and it's up to clients to just like use it or not, and they're not. And so I set out to create a different way of engaging clients around how to actually use the data that they're collecting. And what I found was maybe sometimes they shouldn't even get off of Blackbaud or whatever tool they were on. Maybe they should stay there and learn to drive the car they already have instead of getting a new one. And that was a real revelation for me and shifted my business model so much so that I started the Human Stack. And if you think of the reason for the name is, if the tech stack solves human problems with technology, then the human stack solves technology problems with humans, because for the technologists like us in the world, right, tech is the solution. But for everybody else, like 97% of the rest of the world, tech is the problem. And so we need to actually start addressing how do we use tech that's a problem for a lot of organizations. So I called it the Human Stack.
I love that. I love the way that you talk about it too, because I think I heard you speak about a year ago, and just you talk a lot about like the people, right? Like if you're stressed about your tech, or you're afraid of tech changes, or you're super busy and you can't, you just don't feel like you have time to do it. Like all of those emotions play into how you're managing and using your tech. And so, I really love that, bringing the whole person back into the question. Like it's not just the tech, like all of the people using it at your organization are really important too.
It's so true. And something that the technology industry has been completely ignoring, and is what does shame do to an organization? Not just the human, like the single individuals, but across the organization. What happens when there's widespread tech shame or trauma? Like it's very easy to create tech trauma by, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So yeah, absolutely. These are very relevant because we say words like adoption and change management and governance. And for the most part in the industry, none of that actually works. We don't know what we're doing. We don't measure it. We try not to, because the numbers would be really bad. We wouldn't have case studies. Like it's just abysmal. It fails over 70% of the time. And so, yeah.
Tech trauma.
Thank you, Haley. Yeah.
Well, and I wanted to say, like, I think if you talk to any person in any nonprofit across the United States, you don't even have to ask very many questions before tech trauma will come out.
Yep.
There's some like something they're doing right now that's not working very well, that's like, takes them all day to do, and they wish it were just a couple of clicks. There's something that an implementation they had in the past where they're like, oh, that was horrible. Like it was so stressful and traumatic. So yeah, it's definitely resonating.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've probably given people just about enough time to do the quiz.
All right.
Did you want to talk about the vitals that they have looked at in that quiz, and then we'll get to our poll?
You answered 6 questions in that quiz, and 3 of them are related to the tech stack. They're solution fit, data quality, and utilization. So those are health vitals, digital health vitals for the tech stack. On the human stack side, there is system sustainability, digital strategy, and accountability. If I have these 6 questions for an organization, I'll show you what I can do with them, but it all starts here. And part of what's important here is, Carolyn, you must have seen this over and over. The questions people want to know is that top one: what solution should I use? And what all of us know is it doesn't matter which car you're going to buy if you don't know how to drive it, right? And so, I wanted a way to measure 5 other things that organizations could start thinking about today, because it takes a long time to change a solution fit, like an ERP or a CRM. That takes a really long time. And in the meantime, there's a lot that can be done. So that's where this originated. And yeah.
The URL for that quiz is thehumanstack.com/quiz. It's a pretty easy one, but for anyone listening to this, that's where you can go to find this free quiz that you can take with these 6 different areas. Where is your organization doing the strongest? And that's one of the things about taking a quiz, right? Is it gives you a little bit of that insight into, it's subjective. You're making, a guesstimate maybe of where this is happening, but it helps you start thinking of these different facets and where, you are doing the strongest. We had about half, a little bit over half said that they were strongest in utilization. About half said solution fit. I'm going to go down a little bit. 30% said digital strategy. And then a tie for data quality and accountability. And a couple of people put in that it was not applicable. So the second poll, probably no surprise, is where were you the most challenging? And we're all in this together, so don't be shy. Everybody has challenges. And it's just interesting to see if there's any, patterns of like people are in general feeling challenged in the same way at their organizations. And I'm, no nonprofit is the same. Every nonprofit is a special flower. So it's definitely, you're going to have, specific challenges and strengths at your organization, but this will just give us a little bit more to talk about how you're feeling about how you're doing.
Digital strategy wins or loses, depending on how we're thinking about that. And something you said is so important, Carolyn, about this, which is this is not moral failure, people. Like, there's no reason to feel bad, guilty. There is a lot of reason that you will feel shame, and that's unfortunate, and we'll talk through that. But in a perfect world, you wouldn't, because this is like, just here's where we're at. This is just taking a diagnostic, just running some tests. So please don't feel a certain amount of way about that. Accountability was 47%. The next highest was a tie between data quality and system sustainability. The third one is another tie between solution fit and digital strategy, and utilization was last, which makes sense since it was first on the other one.
That does make sense. Yeah. And I think what's interesting here too is I don't see, there's no one that was highest for a lot of people. Like there's a pretty good spread of the things that people are having difficulty with. So which kind of speaks to what we were talking about earlier. Like there's something difficult about it in all these different aspects, right?
And Marcos, you made a really great comment about why your utilization is higher for your organization, which has to do with compliance. And in a weird way, that compliance then is an accountability source. So one way of thinking about it for your organization is that actually you have external accountability that is creating that for you. So, all right, this is my son in the background there with the long hair. That's my son. His name is John David. A couple years ago, he came to me and he said, "Can I build a canoe?" And I said no. But the way I said no was I said, only if I approve it, which was my way of saying no because I was never going to approve it. Because if you have a canoe in your wood shop, that's what you've got for the next 2 years. A couple weeks later, I'm on the phone, distracted. He comes in, hands this little cardboard thing, and I say, "Oh, that's cool." And he said, "So can I?" And I was like, "Okay." And I just signed off on the canoe without realizing it. So the next thing I know, he is out with his grandparents getting lumber and building this canoe. So here he is in the backyard. Like, that's not a coffin, that is the canoe. And he just started putting it together. There he is with a jigsaw. There it is right there. And if you like, he was 13 and I did not think that he would finish it, but he did. And here he is on High Lake Reservoir and he goes all the way across there and all the way back. He went out like 4 times in that canoe. It was a very tippy canoe, but he built it and he was not even 15 when he finished it. So I was very impressed. I was like super excited because that made me really proud of him. And the takeaway here is that I love doing projects with my son. I really do. Um, and but you probably think I'm a good dad, and I am, hopefully. But I want to just show you how one rephrasing will change your mind about that. So if I say I'm a good dad, I love working on projects with my son, you're all like, "Ah, good dad, that's cool." If I say I work on my son who is a project, like red flags everywhere, kids in counseling, right? You see what I'm saying? Like, we are so wired to understand one core truth. And in consulting for over 10 years now, I've never seen a consultant make this mistake of calling people projects. Like, it is almost the only mistake I haven't seen. But we are very clear that people are not projects. If you're in fundraising, you know that donations matter, but donors aren't donations. And if you treat them like they're donations, they stop giving. And we also know on some level that technology matters, but that humans aren't tech. Unfortunately, in this area, we are particularly bad about forgetting the humans. And it makes sense that we've done that, but it is so important for us to start dividing issues that are technology from issues that are human. One Valley ran into this. They're a community foundation that's local to me. Bridget is the CEO. She's a really good friend of mine. And I want you to pay attention to that triangle right there. She's the CEO and the leader. And Jennifer works with her. She's the COO. And you can see the 2 little feet right there. They came to me. They were on a CRM. They had a lot of questions about the CRM. And they just came and said, "Hey, like, is it time to move off? This is not going well." So I had Jennifer just do the quiz you just took. These are not her results, but she got results back and I looked at them and I said, "Here's what I see right now. When I'm talking with you, I feel like you're a little bit off balance. There's a lot of what you're hoping for is that somebody will come in and be the expert for you and solve some of this. And you've got a lot of imposter syndrome. And when I checked in with Bridget, what I found is Bridget knows a lot about tech, but did not know how to lead Jennifer when it came to the technology. And so you've probably already seen my logo, which is these shapes, but not in this order. You can just look behind me. You can see what it's supposed to look like. And the idea here is you could see very clearly that their human stack was not aligned well. And so we came up with a plan and first we said, we're going to measure your digital health. We're going to identify who's driving. We're going to identify who's leading. We're going to create a monthly plan. And ultimately, they ended up getting into our program called Digital Driver's Ed. That's not the only thing that can happen from that. But those 4 things right there are really essential in terms of what next steps most organizations should do. When we get down to that 4th step on monthly plan, that gets a little bit, you want to be really clear about what that looks like, the rest of those are pretty easy to just start looking at and to start knowing who's working on what. I will tell you why they got to this place, but today it is totally different. Bridget is leading really, really well. Jennifer is killing it. Their data problems, they thought that they were going to need middleware. Instead, she's just solving their issues. She's working with another consultant. That consultant is done more in the last few months, Bridget said, than in the prior 2 years combined. So, and there's just a lot of confidence. Jennifer's the boots on the ground person, and Bridget is the leader. So the triangle's the leader, the boots on the ground, that's the driver. That's what I call the driver. And maybe you're the same place. You're like, where do we start? And what I want to say is you start here. And I have other workshops that I give, but I start with this one, which is your digital health. And then there are other workshops that we can go through to solve those other questions that you want to look at more immediately, but it does all start with your digital health. And you've already taken this. So if you didn't before, you can grab the code there, take it. If you were hesitant before, now you feel like you want to, then great. Okay. And you've got something like this. These are the 6 vitals. Your answer looked something more like this if you saw it. I just want to say the overall score, honestly, is not that helpful. It just tells you like, out of 10, where are you? But really what's more important is to know in which areas are you higher or lower. So for example, both of these are organizations that got a 5.2 out of 10. They have very different vitals, different measurements on their vitals, completely different scores. And so here's what that quiz will tell me. So I'm just going to take one organization that we worked with, and when they took this, their whole team took it. And when we looked at that, I compared it to a puzzle, and I just said, your team is like, you have all of the pieces, you flip them upside right, and you counted the pieces, you group them by color, all the other stuff that us puzzle nerds do. But the box is gone, and now your team is arguing about what the picture looks like, right? And the reason I was saying that is their executive team, the lowest score for all of the metrics that we took was from their executive team on digital strategy. And that's the team that's supposed to be making the digital strategy. So when I saw that, I was like, that's really telling. And so that's, and also when I looked at the range of scores on that, you could see like there's a lot of variance here. People are not agreeing even on what the problem is. So just by comparing like how wide was the variance on that, we can see like system sustainability is almost the only one they really agreed on, that and solution fit, I guess. But there's a pretty high variance besides that. So that's what it can tell us. Here's this is a more detailed version of that.
This is just so interesting, Tim, because I was going to ask, like, do you have multiple people take this quiz and then kind of triangulate their answers of who thinks which part is, their guesstimate of how it's doing? That's really interesting. And
I'm working right now with an organization, like it's a large organization, over 100 staff have filled this out. And I'm running analysis. I'll be on site with them week after next to talk with their executive team about what I'm finding with that. So I do offer a diagnostic for larger organizations. And the only extra thing I do is I allow them to add comments behind every question. And I actually don't want more input than that. This is not discovery, it's a diagnostic. And the difference there is that discovery is like exploratory surgery. This is more like running some tests. If you go to a doctor, you want the doctor to say, let's run some tests and then do exploratory surgery. Like you don't ever want it to be the other way around, right? So, yeah. And also, if you're ever out on the street, Carolyn, I'm sure you'll get this too. If you're ever out on the street and you need to diagnose somebody's tech really quickly, you can boil it down to 2 questions. You can just say, is your tech getting a little bit better or worse every day? And do you trust the data? And with those, the answers to those 2 questions will give you a lot of information about where they're going, how they feel, all that kind of stuff. So, okay, does that make sense?
Those are great two questions. Of course, there's 6 dimensions in this, but yes, I
Yep.
definitely, when you talk to people, even just like you talk to them a little while, you can get that sense of, is tech getting better or is tech going downhill?
Yeah. And the other thing to say, if there are any other data nerds like me on here, I am not measuring actual data quality. I'm not measuring solution fit. I don't even really care about that. What I'm measuring is people's perception of it. And people will behave based on their perception, which is really key to know because we humans change on a trend and we measure on the trend. So if you start to treat the trend and reverse the trend of people's thinking, you'll actually adjust their behavior way before the data actually tells them that it should be adjusted. So you can relatively quickly have them start behaving as if the data is higher quality just by starting to work on it together and creating a sense of, oh, we're improving this data together.
That was another thing I really loved about this quiz, is that you don't have to go out and find the answers and come report back on like this data or that process or this tool or anything like that. It really is your perceptions.
Yes, exactly. Um, yeah, good point. Yeah. Okay. Here's the order in which you want to work on these issues. And what I expected when I first started doing this work is that there would be like 5 different archetypes that we would find that you should do this work on. And instead, the same pattern kept emerging and kept emerging. Finally, it was like, this is the pattern. And so that doesn't mean that the quiz is meaningless at all. It basically tells you how much time you're going to spend on each one of these steps. And it always starts with digital strategy, very first thing. And then the second thing is you'll work on data quality and system sustainability together. You'll usually stagger that, so you're starting one before, but you could do either one in either order. And the next thing you're going to do is work on accountability. And here's the big trick. Solution fit is adjusted when you start working on anything after digital strategy. So as soon as you start to improve the data quality, you're actually adjusting solution fit. And especially when you start working on system sustainability, it's basically continuous improvement. And so you're starting to adjust the solution fit along the way. And then utilization is a trailing indicator, almost always. It's really helpful to know something like, and I think this was the case for Marcus, if you have low accountability, I mean, I don't know for Marcus if you had low accountability, you had high utilization. I always compare utilization to solution fit, data quality, and accountability to see if it's high, then is that because there's high accountability, or is it because the solution fit and data quality are high? And so that's what I'm looking at there.
Can you leave it on the slide just for a minute? And I wanted to just ask you to go through your sub questions, because there may be some people listening or on the webinar who are like, utilization, like that sounds really technical.
Oh, yeah.
But that
Yep.
just means, are staff using your systems the way they were intended,
Yep.
or do they have to do a lot of workarounds, like, oh, I download this into a spreadsheet and then I re-upload it to the other, like that sort of thing, right?
Yep. And I'll actually go through each one of these.
Oh,
I
okay.
think I've still got time. So yeah. So this is what I call the magic order. You want to start digital strategy, then data quality, system sustainability, accountability, and utilization and solution fit are indirect things that you work on, unless you do a big lift and start adding another system for solution fit.
Thank you for joining Community IT for this podcast, Part 1. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a rating to help others find this leadership resource for nonprofits. Listen for Part 2 in your podcast feed. Community IT does these free webinars and podcasts for our community, and we love sharing our knowledge and experience. If you have more questions or are having trouble with your IT at your nonprofit, please get in touch with us on our website, www.communityit.com, so we can start a conversation or schedule an assessment. Downloading any of our free resources there will get you signed up for our webinar reminders, and you can attend our next webinar in real time and ask our experts your own questions. If you love podcasts, please subscribe and leave us a rating to help others find this leadership resource for nonprofits.